Honestly, this is going to be some kind of bowl here. Energy weapons are getting the creme de la crop when it comes to perks here. There is a wheel now that has extra perks for it. They have modules for it. They have cabins that are specific to energy requirements. And now I'm going to get a co-driver specific to it as well. There is literally a full ensemble, a full kit you can do to improve energy weapons. This is a bowl. I'm just kidding, it's not really that bad, because who really cares about playing energy weapons? Like, for the solid 5 people out there that do it. Congratulations, you guys got a little extra cookies here. But either way, welcome back, everybody. Today, we're talking about the actual, what I'm guessing is planned to be some actually decent changes here. If they're actually decent, I have no idea. But, there are changes, and you know what? You guys love changes. You guys gobble this stuff up left, right, and center. Especially considering that you guys use it to explain why you guys are really bad at the game and complain that, oh no, they nerfed my best weapon. It's like, yeah, hon, about that. Either way, let's actually talk about the news here before I get distracted by rambling on again for another 30 minutes. Today, we got ourselves a new code driver, that's here, which have a nice little flavor text here displaying his background. You know, very angry little guy for whatever reason. But they have a very weird activation for this. So you have to be moving at 80% of your maximum speed. So say if your cabin's maximum speed is 80 kilometers an hour, that means you have to be doing 8 times 2, so 16 less than that. So you'd be doing like, what, 64-ish kilometers an hour to get just one aspect of their perk available. Then after that, you then have to then shoot something at a full charge. So say if you have a weapon that can actually charge up over time, it must then actually fire then. Although I wonder how that works, because aren't there some energy weapons that don't fire at full charge? I'm trying to think of it, but it's like the pulsars, the helioses, and the quasars. I don't think they have full charges, but I could be wrong. I guess they technically do, but either way, you gotta do that. You gotta full charge it. So you have to move fast, and then you have to do a full charge. But after that, it appears that the perk itself appears to be toggleable, and that it just continues to go on forever. But I'm assuming that's only if you manage to maintain your speed at a given, speed, obviously. So that would require you to, like, not hit a wall, or do excellent drifting, or things like that, to actually maintain your full speed, especially in these cramped environments. But assuming you do all that fancy stuff there, you then get yourself an extra 30% damage on stuff to things like cabins, modules, weapons, and movement parts. So a lot of the really functional goody parts of a whole thing. But you do 30% less damage to structural parts. So if the car is decently armored up, gonna be a bit of an issue to peel back all those layers. So it's kind of a weird bag. It enhances damage and then also nerfs damage at the exact same time too, which is kind of weird. And it's also something that I could see being very difficult to actually pull off. 80% speed of your cabin is substantially hard to do unless you have perks and other things to actually go ahead and reduce that requirement significantly. Which even the perk of this passive skill for this co-driver here actually does reduce the speed and distance requirements for perks by 20% here. So that's one way it actually changes it from an 80% down to either it's going to be a 60% or it's going to be minus 16 of an 80, so then it goes down to a 64% of the total cabin speed to actually get that. So we'll see how that actually shakes out in terms of like what it actually does to reduce the percentage here. But that mixed with, I think it's the buggy wheels that have a speed reduction requirement. Yeah, it reduces it by 40% for the buggy wheels here. So there is a way to actually go ahead and get that fairly low, probably below 50 to 40%-ish range. But again, you have to build your car very specifically to then make this talent activation fairly easy to actually achieve regularly. But that usually means you have to sacrifice a lot of armor on your car to use a lot of buggy parts, or you're going to have a lot of wheels, which then consumes a lot of parts. I don't know, it's going to be a weird, interesting balance when it comes to actually seeing whether or not this thing can be useful. Definitely going to be very useful on things like hovers, though, because they're going to have an easy time maintaining high speeds, especially near 100% of their actual, like, cabin speed. So I wonder how that is going to be. That and this perk mixed with the quantum cabin, with those buggy wheels, or the wheels that increase energy damage, which I believe are, it's not the claw, what is the other one called? The Sabbath, right? This one does the bonuses to power. So it is the claw that does the energy damage of weapons. So you can kind of pair it with all of that, but, you know, which wheels to use, which wheels not to use. Another thing is, though, passive skill with this thing, 20% extra durability on things that actually have a protective barrier. So think of things like the Nova Cabin, the Aegis Prime, and the Barrier. I think it's 9. So actually, you can become a pretty meaty boy. If you had multiple Barrier 9s on your build, I could see that being hilarious in terms of just the amount of damage absorption you can do. Although from what I understand, isn't the barrier 9s like they have a reduction in the overall power and effectiveness if you have multiple on you? So the barrier almost enemy flows a couple of seconds, reduce your resistance to explosive damage. So not that I know of, although for whatever reason, it doesn't actually tell you the durability of the shield. It tells you the durability of the module, but what about the shield? It's kind of the important part here. Okay. I digest. Whatever. But pretty interesting though, in terms of like a new co-driver here. Definitely going to be very interested to see how it actually shakes out in terms of how effective is that perk going to be in terms of actually activating it, and then 2, how effective is that perk going to be when it's 30% extra damage on weapons, which is extremely important for stripping off weapons. But at the same time, if you also can't get rid of the structural parts around it as easily, because a lot of weapons are generally covered in structural parts, that also may effectively reduce your stripping potential to the point where the perk almost may be null and void, especially considering that there are, you know, co-drivers in this game already that offer pretty much guaranteed extra damage for 25 seconds, or have a, I believe the charge time of all damage weapons is something like this. You know, you could have Jay, you could have Bill, you could have other characters in your roster here that can actually help you with your damage potential without having to, like, sacrifice it. That, and I'm pretty sure you can always just use Grizzly, because Grizzly's pretty awesome for getting a little extra bit of durability, but I don't know. What do you guys think about Hurts? Leave down below. Beyond that, we also have a bunch of other changes here for all the other co-drivers here, so, or actually, there's actually only 2 here. Falcon, the talent charge now is 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds, so it's 1 second extra longer, so not terribly bad. So where is the old Falcon here? So highlights explosive modules on enemy armored car for 6 seconds, increases the damage to it by 15%, and you must hold your sights on for 2 seconds, which I didn't really know that was a huge issue here, but maybe I guess with Scorpions it could have been really effective, but alright there. Acting more often than the talents of all the other co-drivers makes them almost feel most effective choice for many players. I mean, maybe if that's what you're going for, is trying to bum rush explosive bits, but I feel like that's only a niche circumstance, and usually most explosive bits are fairly well armored. Most of the time, people are not explicitly going for explosive bits. Usually they're just going for the weapons, because that's the easiest thing to do, or in the case of Caucus users, just going straight for the cabin, so alrighty then. Now to activate the talent, you need to fill 2 charges instead of the 4 charges before for the... So let's take a look here. What did Yuki do here? So the talent charges while the player stays behind the enemy vehicle at a distance of 35 meters. In the case there are multiple enemies charged and built faster, the charge does not go down quickly when there are no enemies nearby. It does not charge the drones and turrets, and increases the damage of all weapons. So you need to have 4 charges of it, so I assume it fills the circle 4 times. So instead of that, you only need to do 2 charges. Huh. Okay. I guess really, effectively, that just makes it so it is much easier to actually activate. But the perk on here does not necessarily give you, like, an idea of how long that actually is. It doesn't give you, like, a time limit or anything, so unless you're actually testing that, I have no idea as to what that actually means, and I've never used this character, so I have no idea either, so let me know what you guys think down below about that. Beyond that, plane balance changes here, so the bore, the physical model of it, has actually been increased here, so not bad here. Can what effectively penetrate the internal parts of the vehicle, not only deal damage to external parts. Huh. I'm not quite sure what that means, because usually when you extend the length of a weapon like that, it actually can be a huge benefit, because I've found often, especially with a lot of these smaller melee weapons, is that they can get stuck, where your weapon has penetrated inside the car, but because the armor of the car may not necessarily be like a giant sheet, your car can get stuck on the outside on the rest of the armor, and your weapons are just kind of like hanging in a free open zone in the hole, unable to do damage. So, okay. Beyond that, the Prosecutor 76 here, explosion radius increased by 50%. Loaded! Increases projectile explosion radius will fix this problem. Okay. Prosecutor 76, what rarity tier even is that? Because I don't mess around with cannons too much, so I'm not sure if it's just like, oh, silver tier, or if it's like god tier cannon here. Isn't that this one? Yeah. Okay. So they just made it extra bigger. Alright. The thing is, with having too large of an explosion radius on a weapon, or cannon shots, it used to be an issue where you can get broad swiped by a couple of cannon shots or rockets, and it basically strip the entirety of a car. So for the longest time, machine guns and shotgun builds were having a super hard time actually being competitive with these explosive builds, because they would just literally strip you from a mile away, and you wouldn't be able to counter it. Especially if they were on hovers and invisible, it could be exceptionally stupid to try to actually deal with these people, so, okay. Hopefully it doesn't get that too far, because a 50% explosion radius is still pretty substantial. Next, we got the payload. The rocket launch now reloads faster every half a second here, which, okay, not too bad. Pyramid. I'm trying to think of this being the Wasp, so this is supposed to be like the teal version, from what I understand correctly, right? Yeah. Both rockets hit the volley of the target. The next blast radius of the volley increases by 15% for 8 seconds. So they just made it reload faster in order to actually... Okay. Okay. I guess it could be useful, but at the same time, too, I mean, I feel like with rockets, a big issue is not necessarily its reload, although it would increase its damage potential. If it's more like the tightness of its shot. If you're able to give it a tighter shot, maybe that it might even be better for the pyramid. But either way. Next, we have the equalizer here. The optimal range reduced by 30 meters, and the maximum range reduced by 100. Oh, dang. That is a huge nerf. 100 meters. 100 meters. A reduction of a maximum range of 100. And a reduction of 30 for optimal range alone is a huge one because the drop-off potential for that. But rough on the equalizer. It's funny because I don't really find the equalizer to be like exceptionally great because of its low durability. So even in epic tier games, I always find it to get stripped quite easily unless you're at a distance or they have an excellent angle on you. But otherwise, it's usually like gets beamed here pretty quickly. But dang. Executioner 88mm. So the explosion radius again 50%, lordy. And the blast damage increased by 6%. It reloads an extra half a cent factor. And the durability has been increased by nearly 50 points. Dang! More powerful cannon comparable to effectiveness of other epic weapons. I mean, that's great. I mean, the main point of the Executioner was not necessarily to be a big explosive weapon. Was to be a penetrator, though, so it'd go deep into the cabin and knock off modules. I thought that was supposed to be the point of the 88mm. Especially considering they could be resistant to things like skirt armor because it has that penetration factor. But now that has that big explosion factor, too. Like, I just wonder how it's going to work inside of a car. I feel like that could be exceptionally effective. And even now, just like as a surface weapon, it'll definitely be effective at stripping just straight on the surface. So you don't have to worry about penetrating inside. You can just do it that way. Huh. Interesting. Next, the Dead Man here. The bonus to reloading of weapons from the amount of single copy has been reduced from 25% to 20%. However, this be excessive when compared to the 15 and 10% bonuses for 2 or more weapons, which leads to an excessive increase in effectiveness for weapon in a single copy. So dang. Reloading weapons on them in a single copy is reduced from 25. So effectively having more of the same weapon won't give you nearly as much reloading potential, which the Dead Man. Let me go take a look at where that is. Alright, so this bad boy here reduces weapon reloading time depending on the number of mounted weapons. Bonus value is 25% if one mounted as weapon, 50% if 2 are mounted, or 10% if 3 or more are mounted. So in that case, I probably had it actually wrong. Now it just means that one weapon reload rate won't be 25% higher, so only having a single weapon was being too effective, which, to be fair, single-mounted weapons being excessively effective, I'm trying to think if that's really the case with any of them, because I feel like most of them are not that effective. Like, sure, it's kind of comical to have, like, a weapon that can do a crap ton of damage in a single volley, or be absolutely blast cannon to take off half a car. Downside, though, they're usually single weapons, and they're usually very, very large, so the potential of them to be stripped or taken off was exceptionally easy. I shouldn't say exceptionally. I mean, it's still a lot harder than traditional guns, but comparatively, when you have to deal with multiple weapons, rotating around, firing at you, and can be generally a bit harder to shoot. I mean, yes and no. Although I'm kind of curious as to, like, was the win rate above 50% with Dead Man users? Is that what it is? It must have been. I'm thinking that's what it is. Oh, but, alright. Young Wang. The perk damage is increased from 15% down to 12%, so not really too much on that. 15% is not really going to do, like, wow. That have made this thing from king to 0. Let's take a look at Young Man, though. Young Wang. So increases the damage 50% for each unit spent on hardware. So that'd be things like radars, reload modules, shenanigans like that, I'm guessing. So how many people did really do that? Because the thing is, you can only mount one of those to a cabin. 30% though. I mean, if you do that with like 3 or 4 modules, that could be a considerable reduction in DPS, but will it change rear weight that much? Barrier. So the energy drain reduced from 3 to 2. Ooh, power score has been reduced by a couple hundred points here. Nice. It activates a decent amount faster, but its shield durability has been reduced by 19%. It'd be kind of also nice to know what that durability actually is without having to go out there and test it for the 15 million time. Please just, like, actually give us solid numbers. I understand you don't want to, like, overload this page, but if someone is doing a detailed dive and actually looking at these numbers, having a lot of numbers on here can only really be of a benefit. The casual viewer who is not going to be interested in these numbers is not going to read patch notes. But, alright then, cool. This is almost never seen in battles. Yeah, it's because it requires a large amount of coordination, not because the weapon itself was actually poor. A team that could properly use a barrier was dangerous, because they could actually take points and take charge fairly well. Downside, a team that did not know how to use it or constantly ran away from it, completely useless. That's why it was generally only used with drone boat builds to protect things like turrets or point capturing. But even then, exceptionally rare. But alright then, we'll definitely see how much easier this is, especially with the fact that it'll be easier to mount onto cars, seen at lower power scores here, and generally activates considerably faster. Oh, and you receive points for extra points for blocking damage here. That's great, because usually the amount of points you actually receive for blocking damage was basically negligible, and I don't think you even receive any in PvE battles, so good on that. The Tormentor here, damage bonus increased from 50 to 80%, and the activation time increased by an extra second here, so I guess it does make sense, because a Tormentor, I believe, doesn't have close to 2 energy drain for its use case, which compared to a lot of other stuff that you can slap on your car, like a radar or an invisibility module, that can definitely be a little bit. Yeah, 2 energy, so I was right on that. So, look at that. I just know everything in this game. But great. Hopefully now melee weapons will become meta again, which, honestly, back in the days when, like, the Harvester was king of the crop, that was also kind of scary. Because you just get pinned against the wall, you couldn't do anything, and it would just, like, stick on you like glue, man. Ugh. The Aggressor here, tonnage increased by, looks like an extra 100 kilograms. Mass limit increased by 200. And time to reset the charge when driving in a non-straight line increased from half a second up to 1 second. So, okay. I mean, it's not really terribly much of a difference here. It's, like, extremely small, but alright then. Tank tracks here, the turning radius has been reduced here, so it's going to be able to sit here and turn in a tighter radius. And the turning radius is also reduced for the reinforced track and the armor track and the Goliath, so basically all of them. And increases turning speed on the spot. That's great, because their big nerfs to them last time, I don't say they made them unusable, but I wasn't enjoying using them, so nice on them. Next, the hovers here. Fix the bug in calculating the acceleration. Now the mass of the car and the number of the hovers, greater impact on acceleration, so generally you're going to accelerate slower. Nice. Reduces the effect of acceleration on tilting the Icarus 5 hovers. So, interesting. Acceleration on tilting, so does that mean you're going to have reduced tillage? Or, not tillage, reduced tilting? Okay, so a bit more of a straight line. Now the effects of the hovers are visible in stealth mode. Detection of the chance is comparable to the visibility of the tracks from the ground moving parts. Oh dang, I didn't know it completely negated the effect of like the jet engines, like the blue smoke out of it. So the fact that was gone, that almost seems like a bug, but alright, cool. So a bit easier to see in stealth, although to be fair, I feel like most people don't even actually utilize like their senses when they can actually see it, because I believe you can only see that stealth thing from a decent distance. Like you can't see it infinitely in the distance. So, okay, definitely nice. But beyond that here, legendary parts, the Arbiter, the optimal range, oof, blanket nerf to all miniguns of 30 to 100 meters. That is still just rough. Same thing with the Equalizer here. Arbiter is a bit more tough, so it can be a bit more usable, but still, that reduction in 100 meters, though, is huge. You're going to be in a lot more of a sticky situation to actually, effectively use it, so rough. Here's the physical model of the weapon here. Accuracy increased by 11%, and optimal in range increased by 50 meters. Okay, and the physical model of it's been a little bit smaller, so the Reaper is going to be a little bit harder to actually strip off and do its funky little business with. But, alright then. And the fact that its accuracy and optimal range is increased too, definitely means it's going to be able to pinpoint down a lot more. Still, main benefit of this thing, or at least with the Reaper itself, is still going to be its long-range shots. So good. Next, the assembly here. Now, the penalty to the weapon's rotation speed is 33% instead of 61% before, so nearly doubling of the speed. Very nice. Now, the weapon's charge too long, and being reset, it heats up by 50% instead of 100% before. Okay. That's actually pretty good, because 100% heating rate means double the damage, so very high chance of actually being stripped, so not too bad. And the accuracy without charging increased by 11%. Okay, so you're actually able to fire this a bit more accurately just by doing a little click on that. So, alright. Definitely allows it to be used in more scenarios than just like its one charge mode. Now, the Kaiju fires 2 more burst rounds of shots. Interesting, so what if this is a way to make up for the fact they nerfed the... Was it the Young Wang cabin that I was taking a look at here that actually... Yeah, it was that Young Wang cabin. So, okay. Not that jazz. But alright, we'll see how well people are actually able to use that, because it's definitely more damage overall. The Kami here, the tonnage has been reduced by 100. Okay, so, not gonna lie, a lot of these changes to cabins that are like 1 second, 100 kilograms, I don't want to say they're effectively mute, but you could not include it, and it still probably would feel exactly the same. Next, the Avalanche here, projectile explosion now deals 30% more damage to the player's armored car overall. So original form, the weapon can be used as kind of a reusable spear by firing at the enemy close range. You'd like to slightly reduce the popularity of this type of gameplay by increasing its risk. Oh, okay. So now it actually deals more damage, not to the player's car, like the enemy player, but to the player itself, to the one who's using the weapon. Okay. So it actually disincentivizes you from going up there, because now your weapon itself will actually get a considerable lot more damage. Which is kind of funny, because they have a lot of specific weapons in this game that are literally designed to be used as like facehugger weapons, so interesting. Alright. Next, the Ripper here added 90% resistance to melee to the weapon's discs, and the durability is reduced from 100 points to 50 points, so I guess it'd be harder for melee people to get rid of it. The model of the disc has been increased to match the size of the visual model here. So actually a bit more nice of a visual cue. So that's always great. I always like more accurate models here. But I'm guessing this is to actually make it so you can actually shoot them more effectively without it taking a lot longer. But still, melee people are going to have a little bit harder of a time to actually chew it up. So that'll be nice. Beyond that, what else we got here? Improved handbrake mechanics here. Very fancy. You guys can read this in detail. But essentially it means it's easier to do drifting now with using the handbrake, which if a lot of you were doing that mechanic properly, congratulations. Now you actually have that back here. Oh. But yeah, you can see they already have their testing, but to be fair, I've already recorded this video. It is the 21st. All this testing has concluded here. But it's still nice to actually go over this, because these are still likely going to be 80 to 90% of the changes you're actually going to see in the final game. Because while this merely is testing, it usually means it's a almost finished product to then be shipped out. Because generally they're not going to test features that are way off base to what they're already doing, unless they're like testing something completely brand new mechanic. Like the repair module that of course never went into the game, because repairing is asinine or antithetical to this game, but definitely interesting little mechanic here, yes. But beyond that, we also have ourselves here a brand new fancy dancy PvP map here, which honestly does look pretty dang jazzy in my opinion. I mean, the main obvious thing alone is its absolutely gorgeous aesthetics in my opinion. I've been a big advocate of winter maps in this game for a hot second, because for whatever reason, it's been the same like deserty theme for absolute ages, and honestly, doesn't look like, you know, after a while you kind of get tired of it. So having these nice, super large, very cool winter maps, oh, love it here. Although I wonder how the traction is for wheeled cars here. If it's going to be very low, very slippery, or going to be sliding all over the place, or if it's going to be a bit more traction oriented. And honestly, I could not tell the difference between those two sides. But it does look like it's going to be a fairly wide open map with a decent amount of tunneling and a lot of perching spots here you can actually use to go ahead and either sneak under or sit on top to actually fire a decent distance away. Does look very, very nice. Oh, and this looks like one of the capture points down here, down in this recess, you can see, with great sniping points all around. So if this is going to be one of those capture points, definitely going to need to have one of those barriers down here of some sort. Almost kind of looks like a, oddly enough, like these little blue rods right here in the ground, these nice little circular pads, kind of actually remind me a lot of, what is it, like those little reactor cores or little reactor sections from nuclear power plants. Reminds me a lot of that. But honestly, do love the blue aesthetics around here. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like a nuclear submarines, or if it's just headlights, or if it's like the Reavers but all the way up north, or if it's just supposed to be color themed. But still really like it, still love the coloration of it. Oddly enough, gives me like Ice Crown Citadel vibes. Not Ice Crown Citadel, but the other ice themed bases in World of Warcraft. Really gives me strong vibes of that. Do love it. And definitely looks like it's going to have a nice mixture of open. That's definitely not going to be like a nice closed type map that people are going to be using for like super shotgun builds or super melee builds unless you have stealth modules. So definitely liking that. Plus the, well, it looks like the ski lifts down here. Ah, so good. And they also had some flavor text in here about this is supposed to be their base they use to salvage submarines. So the commenter who was saying this is all about submarines there, look at that. You guys are absolute smart cookies, because guess what? I have the absolute smoothest of brains that I cannot use to figure out even the basics of sentences. So, congratulations, guys. Good job. Either way, guys, I am going to say, yes, excited for this map. Oh, well, look at that around. The Aurora Borealis? localized entirely within your kitchen at this time of the year? Yes. Does he even watch Desmond's anymore? Probably knows that meme. But either way, definitely looks like a nice jazzy map. What is your guys' opinion on it? Are you guys excited for it? Do you guys want some more melee-focused maps, more open-style maps? Let me know down below. Personally, I'm more of the mindset of like these nice big open maps, a little bit longer of engagement times with a bit more coordination. I'm always a big fan of that. I never did like the hyper, autistic maps that are very similar to Call of Duty, where you spawn in, you charge like 2 seconds forward, fight everybody, and then die. Sure, that'll of course require you to have longer capture times for points, but having a slower game pace is not necessarily a bad idea. I know they were trying to go towards that mindset of having more of like World of Tanks-esque vibes, where the battles take a considerable amount of time. So I wonder if that was going to be more of their vibe they're going for, but I guess we'll see next time. But I think we will call that good here, so thank you all for watching this fine evening. If you enjoyed what you've seen, feel free to follow whatever platform is your favorite. We're on that YouTube and we're on that Twitch. We live stream there quite regularly, so feel free to go ahead and follow there. Plus, there will be permanent archives of those streams available on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. Beyond that, there's also going to be Twitter and Discord if you want to get notified whenever I go live, as well as just join the community, so follow on over there. But beyond that, guys, I think we'll call it good, so I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.